Besides down payment, there are few other costs involved in home purchasing process. My recommendation is to download cost of buying a home sheet and follow along, or at the very least get a pen and paper and make sure to write down everything that I'll say. I have some great information prepared for you. As soon as you and the seller agree on the price and the terms of the offer and the contract is fully signed, the clock starts ticking. Sellers will have their own sets of costs because basically in a real estate transaction, whoever benefits pays. And moving along, we will be discussing strictly buyer's cost. So everything that you will need in order to purchase a house. We'll start with earnest money. Earnest money is typically about 1% of the purchase price. So if we are looking at, let's say, $500,000 home, you will look at anywhere around $5,000. Keep in mind, the earnest money can vary because it is a negotiable item. Most of the items in the contract are negotiable, and earnest money isn't the exclusion. So a rule of thumb is the earnest money, it is something that's due after seller and buyer sign the contract. You will have about 72 hours or 3 days to submit the earnest money in the amount of 1% of that purchase price. Down payment. Down payment, it is something that you and lender will discuss. Down payment could be as low as 1%, maybe 3.5%. That's an FHA product. 5% as a conventional loan, 10% or 20%. Honestly, there is not a big difference between 5% down payment and 15% down payment, besides the actual monthly payments that you'll be paying. However, if we are hitting that 20% mark, that's when the monthly payments will go down and you will not have to pay mortgage insurance with putting 20% down. And down payment is due at the day of closing. Please talk to a lender what loan options you qualify for. Next will be inspection. And it is very much depends on the size of your house. You don't have to do inspection, it is optional, but we highly recommend you hire an inspector to check full health of your home. Everything that goes into your house, they will check: electrical, plumbing, roof, and so on and so forth. If they will find something major wrong with the roof or plumbing, they might recommend some other inspections and specialists to look further into that issue. Typical health of the house inspection cost, again, depends on the size of your home. It could be anywhere between $250,000 for a condo, and it varies all the way up to $650,000 for a larger home. Some of the additional inspections like sewer inspection or mold inspection, there is radon inspection and mitigation process, so mitigation. And the radon mitigation process, all of those additional costs per special circumstances situation, those costs will vary as well, between $100 all the way to $500. So when do you need to pay for the inspection? Typically within 10 to 14 days after you went under contract. Next is appraisal. Appraisal is basically when the bank sends an appraiser to value your property and make sure that the bank gives you exactly amount of money as this property is worth. And appraisers could be anywhere between $450, but typically they are around that $650 mark. And appraisals are done within first 20 to 21 days after you go under contract. Closing cost and closing fee. A lot of people get those two confused. So think of a cost a lot and fee a little. So closing cost is a lender cost, and please talk to your lender on what your closing costs are. They could be anywhere between 1.2% of the purchase price, can go all the way up to 6% of your purchase price. The higher closing cost typically associated with some kind of a down payment assistance programs or some kind of government assisted loans. The standard overall majority of the loans you will see anywhere between 1.2 to 1.8% of the purchase price for the closing cost. And as we mentioned earlier, your first monthly payment will due within the 2 calendar months. So you will have a bit of a breathing room before your mortgage payment. And that's all thanks to those closing costs. And the closing cost is something that's due at the closing. It will be in your final closing settlement statement, and you will be discussing that prior to the closing with your lender, how much they will be. So closing cost is a lot, closing fee is a little. Closing fee are about $400. And again, they can vary title company per title company. In real estate transaction, whoever benefits pays. So both buyer and the seller benefit from the closing, and at times you can see that we negotiate that half of those closing fee is paid by the buyer, half by the seller. Again, all of it is negotiable. In the circumstances like investment purchases, sometimes buyer investor pays all of the closing fees for the seller in order to get a better deal. What are closing fees? Are basically title company fees to take seller's name off the public records and put your name as a buyer and register that with public records. So that's basically what you're paying for as a scrivener fee. You're paying them to close a transaction. Agent fees. That may vary. As we discussed in our previous lessons, there are different types of realtors and they will charge you different types of commission. It is up to you to discuss that with your representation and choose your advocate wisely to carry you through this entire home purchasing process.
This is the most common cost for buyers, and in some cases you might need to prepay HOAs for a month, a few months, or the HOAs charge a reserve fee as a lump sum. The rest of the cost should be a case-by-case scenario, and as you already know, we will be happy to schedule a strategy session with you to go over the specific costs. Now you know your timeline of purchasing a home, how many people will be assisting you with the transaction, and how much money you'll need to have before confidently starting your home buying process. Feel free to stick around. We have a few bonus videos for you.